Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of Strife's Talking Points, where I'm going to go over this story, which I found from the Real News Network, and it came up at the end of a story I did earlier, and this is just something that hopefully we all can look at and go through together as a YouTube channel, as a country, as people. I think this is very important to discuss. Headline: Date: Death by police is now the 6th leading cause of death among young men. It was once believed that police killings were the 14th leading cause of death among young people. However, a new Rutgers University study by Frank Edwards, which used federal statistics and a journalistic investigation, found that the death rate is far higher now. We discussed the research with Frank Edwards. Now, there's a transcript of the story here on Real Clear News. Basically, they're talking to the person going here. Right. The novelty of what we've done here is that prior, the available information on police-involved killings really hasn't been at a point where we've been able to classify how many people were actually killed by police and what the risk of being killed by police was, both in terms of annual risk and in terms of risk over the life course. That's largely a function of the availability of high-quality data that records police-involved killings. The federal government has never developed a comprehensive data product that tracks police-involved killings. Journalists have stepped into this void and provided systems like Fatal Encounters, and what they've done is they've relied on news reports. So they're taking the news reports of fatal shootings and they combine that into a database. You can actually go to Fatal Encounters, click on their tables, and they will give you a full list of the reported, and this is reported by journalists, newspapers, such and so forth, over the last 19 years. They started in 1/1 of 01, and they're going to run all the way down. It'll pop up here in a second. This table is huge that they've collected. A lot of good information on it. I found, I was flipping through here just checking the stuff out. Agencies involved, cause of death gunshot, a brief description. Now, they do go through here, and I'd really like to separate, see, like, police responded to a shooting, police were serving a warrant, how many of these people fired at police and then got fired back, and go from there. But for the overall intent, you can see here that they've collected a very thorough list of information on all these various shootings, and this, I believe, is a very good thing that we can actually look and see all of the police-involved shootings, government-involved shootings of people in the country. I still can't believe that this hasn't ever happened. Now, once I saw this story, I started doing my research, got involved, went through, found a lot of interesting stuff here, and you see this story, it's starting to break slowly but surely. Right now, it's only being done by very small groups. Rutgers Today, Real News Network, which that is a very strange name for their group. University of Michigan, I saw that one and I went to find it. Here it is. This is what the University of Michigan wrote. Police, leading cause of death for young black men. 6th leading cause of death. Ann Arbor, for young men of color in the United States, police use of force is among the leading causes of death, according to a study from the University of Michigan, Rutgers University, and Washington University. Police use of force, which includes all kinds of force, bad stuff, trails accidental death, suicide, other homicide, heart disease, and cancers trails other accidental deaths, suicide, other homicides, heart attack, disease, cancer as leading death for young black men who have the highest risk of being killed by police. I'm going to scroll down just a minute. I'm going to show you this little here. This is actually something they put out. 6 leading cause of death for young black men in the United States. Leading cause of death for young black men. Accidental death. I used a CDC table over the last couple of years to look at this and found that accidental death is only leading in black people from 10 to 14 years old. This study is 2014, 2015. And the major part here that you'll see in all these is assault homicide. That is actually the #1 cause of death for young black men. Accidental, unintentional injuries is 2. Black both sexes, I'm sorry. This is for just blacks in general. Homicide is #1. Homicide is #1 from 20 to 24. Homicide is #1 for 24 or 25 to 29. Homicide is 30 to 34. This is true of no other racial group in the U.S. where homicide is #1. And that homicide is #1. That is still rings true, even though they're saying other homicide is down here at 3. No, homicide is 1, accidental death is 2, suicide is 3, heart disease, cancer, police force. And when you look at this thing, they're trying to again instill fear of the police, because they're not going into depth about what's actually transpiring in these things, where there's here recently the guy in Memphis got out of his car with a rifle in his hands, had rammed the police car, got out with a gun in his hand, they shot him dead. That was U.S. Marshals. And then of course you had the violent protests that never really got out of hand there in Memphis. But remember, this is a guy who drove 35 minutes south of where he lived to look at a car, shot the owner of the car multiple times before stealing the car, fleeing back to his home, and then hoping his area protected him from the police. And when the police showed up, what did he do? He attacked them. Actually attacked, I believe, Marshal Service. In this report, it's a striking number, said co-author Michael Epicito, a postdoctoral researcher in the Survey Research Center at the Institute for Social Research. There have been arguments about how widespread of a problem this is. We didn't have a good estimate about whether it's a few cases that received a lot of media attention. The study shows that police killings are deeply systematic, with race, gender, and age patterning this excess cause of death. He's trying to say that it's structural. Police are shooting black people because they're police, not because of crime rates, not because of violent crimes, not because of any of that. The study goes to note, in part of this, where is it at? That more white people are killed by police than black people, because white people are 3 times the population of black people. I believe that's still true. Let's just call it 10 and 60%, 6 times the population of blacks in the U.S. And that is a staggering number. While statistics show that police in the United States kill more people than police in other advanced industrial democracies, that is a fancy way of saying Europe and Asia. While statistics show that more police in the United States kill more people than police in other advanced industrial democracies, so Japan, South Korea, Australia, and Europe. Researchers say real estimates of how often this occurs is not available, which is where they did the study. The study found that the risk of death for each group peaks between the ages of 20 and 35 and declines with age. People between the ages of 20 and 35 are generally a lot more active, a lot more criminal activity, falls in that group because that's where you see most of your drug arrests, all that type of behavior is all in there, a lot of your criminal stuff. The highest mortality rate is for men between the ages of 25 and 29, when police use of force is deemed to be the sixth leading cause of death behind accidents, including drug overdose, motor vehicle traffic death, and other accidental fatalities, suicide, other homicides, heart disease, and cancer. Black men face a 1 in 1,000 chance of being killed by police over their lifetime, compared to 1 in 2,000 for men in general and 1 in 33,000 for women. Again, there's your talking point. If you ever want to know how women are oppressed, they're much less likely to be harmed by police when they're being stopped for criminal behavior or arrested, whereas men have a much higher risk. They go through some of this stuff on here, and then of course you can look at the for blacks, the number one cause of death below the age of 40 is accidents and homicide. If you're under the age of 35, it's homicide, your number one cause of death. And not just by a little. If you have homicide at 1,600, it's almost greater than the next two causes below it. You know, you see that slowly taper off as they get older. Assault and homicide, 2,000. Almost half of all deaths of blacks between the ages of 20 and 24 is from homicide. Suicide ranks third. And when you go down and pull it apart, I'm sorry, you got to go through both sexes, and they actually, the CDC runs this report up until 100 years old, I believe. Yeah, if you live over 100, disease of the heart, you know, that's. Now, for small children, no, for all deaths, all ages, black men, homicide is number 4. Which is just insane. Cerebrovascular disease is rated out about the same. But when you go, starting at age 1, assault is number 2, homicide. Then you see it drops off 5 to 9, falls to number 5. 10 to 14. Assault and homicide moves back up, and then this is just what we're seeing. And what I think we can glean from this report is you have a group of population that has a higher violent homicide rate, a higher violent crime rate than any other group. And I actually found this to be pretty wild. Adjusted homicide rates by race and ethnicity from the United States for 1999 to 2015. This is from the CDC. The average is about 5.5. You see that right there. And then you break it down. White, non-Hispanic. We're down here, and the average, I believe, last time I checked, was at about 2.5. No, here it is, 2.6 for this period. Much lower than the overall pool from the average here. Hispanics, you see it was higher, and then it slowly drops off, moving back towards your white people, Europeans. And then for blacks, you see it stay right here at or above 20 pretty much the entire time. A group of people with a much higher homicide rate than any other group. That is astounding when you think about how different racial groups exist. Now, again, not really trying to dispute this fact. I actually do believe that death by police is now the 6th leading cause of death among young men. That's incorrect. That's specific to this single group. And the number one cause of death among this group of young men are other young men like them, which murder rate among each ethnic group generally ties back into that exact same ethnic group. However, you don't see the that doesn't track when you slide this back up. And you break it down by, hold on, just takes a minute. There's so much stuff in here. Getting close. White males all ages. White males 1 to 4. See it here. White males 5 to 9. Fall to 6th. Falls to 3. 429. 814. You don't have as high a rate in the white population that have in the black population. Now, in the white population, you see something you don't necessarily don't see in almost any other group with white men: self-harm or suicide. You see that? Self-harm or suicide is one of the highest leading cause among white men. Intentional harm, suicide, still running true. Intentional harm, suicide. And then after 40, apparently it's, no, still there. So what you see is different demographics, different groups of people have different issues. The number one threat to white men is, unfortunately, accidents, and the number 2 is suicides. And I found this very unique here. U.S. crime in black and white. This is just an infogram thing. I found this as an easy way to think of it. It should be noted that actual white-only population is about 63%, whereas whites, including Hispanics, is 77%. However, FBI's opt to include Hispanics with whites when reporting. This is very unique. You see the actual population and the amount of crime committed. Various groups. Let's see. Actual population, murder rate, all these different things here. Then you see the actual population of blacks as being down here at the very bottom, but you see them having committing, about half of the crimes, because you see this goes up to, on average, let's call it 60, and this is average just above 30. However, if you flipped the population, so that you count blacks as 78% and whites as 13%, look at the difference between the graph. If you adjusted statistically by population, you see a much higher crime rate, and 50, you'll see the baseline here is around 300, where 50 we don't make it there. And here you see the baseline for whites would be, I'm just calling it 60. No, if you flip the population, statistically that's what happened. What if you normalized it? Let's compare apples to apples. What if populations were equal? So you had the same amount as blacks as that. What does this kind of show you is essentially, whenever you average it out, you see the whites having a very large chunk of the population. On average, for all these various things, have a very low crime rate. You see that only Native Americans and, well, you see Hawaiian, Pacific Islander, let's call that Asian, I guess Hawaiian. Anyway, you see their rate is, all three groups are about the same except for blacks, which have a much higher rate. It's just crazy. And now we have some fear mongering from them, not explaining to them that the reason you see these completely different rates is because the populations act completely differently. If you had equal populations, you would have whites committing far less crime on average than you get out of the black population. And you can't normalize it this way. It has to be done on a statistical basis, without trying to make these things look so one-sided. If they put in there that, you know, blacks are 3 times as likely to commit a violent crime than a white person, or something to that effect, which would be statistically provable, and say that, hey, that means if you've done a violent crime, you're probably less likely to be shot. However, don't commit a violent crime. No, that's not what they're saying. They're just saying, hey, look at these things, be afraid of the police, and that is all. I really do find this type of stuff both thought-provoking, informative, very much one of those great stories that we need to discuss, one of those ideas that we need to work into our people, our culture, our lifestyle, is that we have a group of people we can't discuss crime rates, we can't discuss homicide rates, we can't discuss any of this because it's considered racist to actually have open discussions about why they find these types of studies. And over the next couple days, I'm probably going to go through this and look for very specific information about what happened in these, because if you go through all these stories, it would just be interesting to see how many of these were Williams was shot and killed when he threatened police with knives inside of his home. They were called there because he was threatening suicide. Isn't that crazy? The police were called because he was going to kill himself, so he threatened them with knives, and then they shot him. Yeah, I'm not a massive, go blue, team blue, but I also find that just insane. If he's going to kill himself, shooting him is definitely not the answer when you're trying to stop someone from killing themselves. Anyway, that's just my report. I'm going to go through this a little later on and see what I can find out. However, thank you all for listening. Please have a wonderful day. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I do, just again to reiterate, this is crazy that now police shootings have moved into top 10 causes of death for any group of people. I don't care. Top 10, that's wild. And maybe a larger conversation needs to be had about how to deal with criminals, how to deal with entering someone's home. Yeah, Tiffany Diaz was killed when her car when she was a passenger with collided with a stolen vehicle being driven by a man pursued by police. The pursuer fled on foot and wasn't immediately caught. So this is a collateral death. Probably should be put in there as well. But like I said, I'm going through this report. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. I'd like to know your thoughts. Thank you all, and hope you have a wonderful day.